Okay, we are live. Hello,
Hello.
Dr. Nicole.
Hi, Sandra. How are you?
Good, good. Always nice to see you.
Likewise.
ومبلشين معك السنة so هيك مثل it's a good luck year for us, very positive year. ومبلشين مع challenges ومشاكل عن جد نتحسن هالسنة. وهيك we tackle struggles وحدة ورا الثانية، خصوصي معك أنت يعني عم تكوني معنا بصيرة specialized على كل شيء خاصه بالindividual، أشياء خاصة بالهيك coping mechanisms. We are looking forward ل sessions معك throughout the year ولا support groups كمان معك. يعني we are going to launch with you in February a support group for anxiety. So كمان عم ندعي الناس إنه يبلشوا يتسجلوا ليفوتوا معك على support group وين فينا نحكي كلنا سوا عن مشاكلنا we share our experiences و struggles. A big thank you for believing in the mission of Sira and for being part of our pillars and our team. We're looking forward to the session tonight. أنا بس بدي أذكر الناس يلي يعني قبل ما أنت تعرفينا عن حالك ونفوت بالتوبيك لأنه معنا كمان ناس جداد. I just want to remind people يلي عم يحضرونا لايف هلا. نحن we are live in a round table مع دكتور نيكول. رح نقضي معها تقريبا 45-50 minutes in this round table وين أنتوا عم تسمعونا. You can interact with us through questions وفيكم تسألوا أسئلتكم anonymously تما يبين اسمكم بالتسجيل. من بعدها بننقل مع دكتور نيكول على virtual room رح نعرفكم لكم كيف it's very easy على الموبايل تبعكم. رح نخلق أوضة وين ما بنكون عم نسجل وفيكم هيك to interact مع دكتور نيكول لايف ونحكي بمشاكل يعني personal issues. You can share your story. بتفيدوا كمان غيركم يلي عم يقطع بهالستراجل كمان. And this is the power of the collective and this is what we believe in سيرة. So سيرتنا بتجمعنا وسيرتنا بتشفينا أكيد بوجود mental health experts like you. So Dr. Nicole عارفينا عن حالك just for the newcomers and then we can kick off with our topic.
Of course, Sandra, as always, يعني thank you for the introduction وكمان بشكرك على كل جهدك وكل شيء بتعمليه للسيرة. للأشخاص اللي جداد معنا اليوم, I hope that they've had the time to, check out the website, check out the Instagram page to learn more about what Sira does offer. يعني a shortened version of it. يعني نحن بنقدم خدمات to support, mental health for people all over the world. بس إنه هلا I think mainly we're trying to target يعني اللبنانية. This is where we've started. بس أكيد بنحب ننشر لكل العالم. فاللي بيحب to join us anywhere, anytime, we'd love that. So what we have is different topics covered by different experts. So في أشياء مثل للindividual support, أشياء أنا بعملها هي للindividual support. في أشياء تانية مثلا خاصة أكتر للأولاد, للparenting support. So, take the time if you haven't already to check out the website, see what things are being offered. وكمان غير هالاشياء التوكس اللي نحن بنعملهم اكيد في اللايف سيشنز بعتقد اللي بيكونوا الاوبن ديسكشنز مع psychologist. So check those out. يمكن اليوم already كان في جلسة لساعتين or if I'm not mistaken, where people can also speak to a mental health expert and address their questions or concerns. أكيد من بعد هيدا السيجمنت بعد 45 minutes اليوم مثل ما قلت بننقل على الأوضة وهيدي it's an opportunity. مش بالضرورة نحكي بس عن procrastination, فينا نحكي عن غير topics. إذا عندكم أسئلة definitely join us. And just to reiterate, this is a safe space where we want people to feel comfortable. So take advantage إنه في عندكم الoption إنه to remain anonymous. أو إذا بتحبوا كمان turn on your video cameras. Share with us your name, where you're from, who you are. We'd love to connect in any way. نخبركم شوي عن حالي. أنا clinical psychologist ساكنة بأمريكا and I offer online therapy sessions للأشخاص اللي بيحبوا يعرفوا أكتر عن شغلي وشو بعمل. They can check out my website اللي هو www.meadowspath.com. كمان عندي Instagram page where I like to raise awareness about different mental health topics. Not very active on there yet. I'm still in the process of collecting some content for this year. As you can imagine, there are so many things to juggle. Maybe I have been procrastinating. I will admit على هيدا الشيء. So I think that's all from my part. فينا نبلش بالpresentation لليوم. So يلي أول مرة they join us بس لتعرفوا kind of my style. I like to have a bit of engagement مع الaudience اللي موجودين معنا اليوم. So رح يكون في أسئلة رح نسألكم إياها, true or false. You're not being graded on this. It's just to, for you to test your knowledge. So Sandra هي عندها إياه هون. She's probably going to post them to you shortly. Okay.
Let me know. Okay, يلا we'll post them now. It's on the poll. Okay, so قدامكم على الاب في chat, في Q&A وفي البول. So we're gonna post them on the poll and wait for your answers. Just 1 second.
Great. So they are 4 statements. Probably you're going to see them shortly. All you have to do is answer true or false. حتى لو ما بتعرفوا, just take a guess at random.
نعطيهم a minute ونرجع ناخذ results.
Yeah, just a few more seconds, maybe 30 seconds, and then we can share the results.
ببلش يجينا results. So you let me know when you want to end the poll.
Great. Yeah, let's start perhaps with that first one. اللي هي procrastination tends to reflect a person's struggles with the self or, with self-regulation or mood regulation. شو جاوبوا أكترية الأشخاص؟
80% true, 20% false.
Okay, and that is right. The answer is true. Second statement, 40% of people tend to be chronic procrastinators. True or false? هيدا بحسها شوي tricky.
67% true والباقي false.
Okay, so it's false. According to research, it's about 20% of people that are considered to be chronic procrastinators. هيدا ما بيعني إنه most people don't, procrastinate occasionally. We all procrastinate occasionally, but they يعتبر chronic procrastinator. They've, identified 20% of the population. Procrastination is laziness. True or false?
Nos.
So I've said no to that. A lot of people will think of procrastination as being lazy, but let me just switch to this other side, the other slide here. So أنا كاتبة, it's not laziness. And the reason why is because it's a behavior caused by stress in our lives and certain negative beliefs that we have about ourselves. So it's over and above just laziness. I feel like when we say procrastination is laziness, we're really just putting a label. Sometimes this label can be unhelpful. And, there's a stigma, I think, sometimes with the word laziness. فهي procrastination أكتر من هيك. The last statement there, procrastination is more pronounced أو منلاقيه أكتر employed adults than in students. True or false? شو كتبوا؟
71% true.
So هو actually false. أكترية الأشخاص that we find are procrastinators in students, and that's about 50% of students will procrastinate. So I don't know who our audience is today. You might be students yourselves, you might be working adults, and you might procrastinate. So maybe that's why you've answered yes. But in general, students more than employed adults procrastinate. فهيدي, again, like I said, just a little bit of test your own knowledge. Let's begin with today's topic. وكمان please feel free إذا بدكم تكتبوا questions على الchat at any point in time. ما عندي مشكلة with these kind of interruptions. بالعكس يعني I encourage هالengagement. Okay, so شو هو procrastination? Procrastination هو intentional delay of an intended course of action in spite an awareness of negative outcomes. يعني نحن بنكون عارفين شو عم نعمل و on purpose عم نقول I'm going to delay this. وهي كلمة procrastinate actually I think it's a Greek origin word اللي هي بتعني to delay to tomorrow. Okay, so this is sort of what the actual definition is. إنه الواحد purposely they want to put things off for the future, even though they know that there's going to be a negative outcome. أكيد هيدا الشيء نحن we can consider it to be a self-defeating behavior, which is marked by short-term benefits و long-term costs. ليش short-term benefits؟ لأنه بوقتها نحن بنكون حاسين برياحة إنه we delayed هيدا الشيء ما عم نفكر فيه، so temporarily هيدا الستريس منه موجود، بس أكيد على المدى الطويل بيرجع الستريس وبيرجع بقوة أكتر. كمان it's a behavior that's used to avoid uncomfortable feelings. So again, just as an example for students, for instance, إذا عندهم a paper that they have to work on، يمكن هيدا البيبر topic ما كتير بيعجبون، أو يمكن they feel anxious about starting it, or they don't know where to start, so it brings up uncomfortable feelings. فلأنه هال uncomfortable feelings موجودة، الشخص بيقول you know what, I'm just gonna push it till tomorrow, till the day after. I still have time. I still have another week. So we'll find 1,000,001 excuses in our book to avoid هيدا uncomfortable feeling. فمثل ما ذكرت أكيد procrastination is not something new. We've experienced this for centuries and centuries since the existence of mankind, and it doesn't discriminate. Every person can procrastinate, but as I said, not every person that procrastinates is a procrastinator, اللي هو the chronic procrastinator. مثل the idea of stress. كلنا we experience stress, كلنا we experience anxiety. It doesn't mean that we are chronically anxious or chronically stressed. There's a difference between those things. نفس الشيء when it comes to procrastination. So أكيد السؤال الكبير هو why do people procrastinate? And if you've been attending these talks by now, you probably know إنه ما بيكون في سبب واحد to explain human behavior. عادة بتكون عدة أشياء to explain why we do what we do. So some of the reasons are, as I just mentioned, we don't believe we're going to enjoy it. So just like that example, إذا أنا عندي ورقة لازم أقدمها I'm not really into that piece of paper, or because it brings up feelings of anxiety, I'm going to avoid it. So نحن بنسمي هيدا الشيء discomfort dodging, trying to avoid هيدا feeling مش حلو. تاني سبب ممكن يكون إنه منخاف إنه we're not going to do well. So some people might have very high standards for themselves, and they believe that if they don't meet those standards, then they failed, then they've done something horrible, and they will judge themselves for it. So if you're following with me, you're probably already thinking of the word perfectionists. So في أشخاص بيكونوا perfectionist, عندهم very high standard لحالهم وبيخافوا to not do a task very well. ولهيدا السبب بيقولوا okay, I'm going to delay it because I just again don't know where to start with it. I need to do more research. I need to do more of something. فما بيعملوا الactual task اللي مطلوب منهم. ثالث سبب أمرار التاسك هو نفسه بيكون quite confusing. I remember كنت عم بشتغل مع وحدة كنت عم تعمل ال PhD تبعها, and she was quite, struggling to start with her thesis لأنه كان الtopic كتير broad and she didn't know where to begin, so the complexity of the task, it was so abstract وما كان في guidance. كمان جمدت, صار في freeze response. So كمان we want to understand that what happens in our body and our nervous system is trying to tell us something important. So أمرار بيكون عنا هال freeze response which results in procrastination. Another common reason is we're overly distracted. هلا في debate, is technology helpful? Is technology not helpful? أكيد حسب نحن كيف نستعمل التكنولوجي these days. So, the use of the internet has helped us in many aspects in life. بس كمان إذا نحن بنستغل هيدا الفرصة وما بنستعملها بطريقة, منيحة لإلنا, it can be harmful. So sometimes we're distracted with things like social media, Facebook, Instagram, the fact that our phones are just so easy to reach, they're very accessible, and all of these fun, distracting applications are there to us. They can come in and get in the way. So whether it's, like I said, using the telephone too much, or other types of distractions, people walking in and out of a room, our mind is distracted thinking about future thoughts of something unrelated to what we're supposed to be doing. So بشكل عام الdistraction ممكن يكون سبب why we procrastinate. Another one could be we're very tired. Some people have very very, very time-consuming things to do. You know, they're busy at work, they come back home, بيكونوا تعبانين، بس كمان عندهم لستة أشياء لازم يعملوها بالبيت، بس من كتر ما هن تعبانين they go, you know what, I just need to rest, I can't, I need to put things off. So كمان عدة أسباب مثل ما عم نقول. Sometimes we're not feeling in the mood to do it. So بعتقد مرت الماضي بالتوك اللي كنت عم بعطيه ميزت بين هول الأشياء اللي هن motivation and discipline. Motivation هو لما نحن ننطر لنحس we're in the mood to do something, versus discipline هو we don't wait for the mood to come in, we do it anyways. So في أشخاص they wake up, oh, I'm not in the mood to go to the gym today, بلاها خلص, I'm gonna cancel my PT session. بينما في غير أشخاص I'm not in the mood to go today, بس خلص I'm already committed, دفعت لهيدا السيشن وقلت أنا بدي أعمل هيدا الشيء, خلص رح أعمله even if I don't feel it. So هيدا الفرق بين motivation و discipline. Motivation, we're waiting for the mood to kind of kick in and do something. Discipline, we do it anyways. So
عنا أسئلة.
hey, hello, go ahead.
Does habits in childhood affect who we become as adults in terms of procrastination إذا ما تعودنا إنه نعمل الأشياء بديسبلين وهيك ونحن وصغار؟
Yes. And this is why, you know, a lot of the stuff that we see nowadays on helping parents with positive discipline and things like that really focuses على هيدي الكلمة discipline, you know, how to have structure, how to do things in a timely manner, etc. Because creating those types of habits early on in life help tremendously as we grow older. You know, after all, نحن we are a result of كل شيء نحن we experience بطفولتنا, you know, هيدا له تأثير. So yes, بيلعب دور كبير. هيدا ما بيعني إذا نحن we didn't learn those skills when we were younger, that there's, you know, no chance that we can learn it as adults, but أكيد, you know, there's a foundation, you know, just like a tree grows and blooms based on قد إيه soil quality, the water اللي عم نعطيها إياها, قد إيه في sunlight exposure. That's the same thing, you know, لإلنا as adults. This is how we grow into our potential. Are there any other questions?
هل is there a certain type of personality بتكون أكتر عندها tendency؟ يعني حكيت perfectionist إنه يمكن one of the causes. هل في مثلا ناس يلي creative و chaotic ومش منظمين بيبقوا أكتر procrastinators من يلي مثلا عندهم أكتر tendency يكونوا diligent, disciplined, يمكن إنه more careful بشغلهم؟ في شيء هيك ولا لا it can happen to anyone؟
So it can happen to anyone, it varies, but what we have found, the majority of the research does point to one of the statements I mentioned earlier today, true and false, اللي هو emotional regulation. الأشخاص اللي they struggle to regulate their emotions are the people that usually become you know, chronic procrastinators. They're more at risk of becoming chronic procrastinators. So شو هو emotional regulation؟ هو لما الشخص يحس بمشاعر إن كانت anxiety, boredom, stress, you name it, and they're not knowing what to do with that. You know, if they're feeling overwhelmed with this feeling and not knowing what to do, these are the people that are most likely going to end up, you know, procrastinating things and putting them off. So that's the biggest, one of the biggest correlations we've found. Akid personality traits, like the ones you've mentioned, can play a role for sure. But the substantial evidence points back to two things, اللي هن self-control and emotional regulation. Any other questions?
No, not for now. Thanks.
Okay, so another reason why people procrastinate is what we call receiving immediate gratification or the present bias. يعني بالوقت الحالي بنفكر إنه you know what, it feels good. I don't feel like doing it. I'd rather just watch my series right now on Netflix and I'll get back to my work tomorrow. I have plenty of time. So the fact that we want to seek the immediate gratification right now, هيدا الشيء again motivates us to delay things. And results in the, of course, procrastination. كان في studies انعملت actually, ناسي هلا by who, بس where they basically sat children in a room. I think they were about the age of 7 or 8. They had another group of children that were younger than 7 and 8. وقعدون بيقولوا حطوا قدامهم candies. قالوا لهم, you know, sit tight, don't have the candies. if you wait for 10 minutes احنا رح نرجع على الأوضة ونعطيكم double the quantity of candies. So لقيوا إنه الأشخاص اللي هن younger أكيد they did not wait, they wanted the immediate gratification. So as soon as the researcher left the room دغري لأكلوا الكانديز، بينما اللي كانوا شوي أكبر بالعمر قدروا to manage their self-control, their impulsivity، لأنه كانوا عارفين إنه رح يجيهم reward أكبر من هيك. So just an example to show, you know, what immediate gratification is. Sometimes we want a quick fix that just feels good right now. Again, as I mentioned earlier, there's a difference between motivation and discipline. One of the biggest contributing factors to procrastination is this idea that we have to feel inspired or motivated to do the work. You know, you were asking Sandra, إنه يمكن للأشخاص اللي هن more on the creative side, sometimes they might have a, you know, a writer's block or a creativity block or whatever, and they're just not feeling inspired, not feeling this passion to produce. This can sometimes be problematic. أكيد منا كارثة أو آخر الدنيا, but sometimes هيدا الشيء بيمنعهم إنه يشتغلوا على الشيء that, I don't know, that has a deadline, for instance. So let's talk more about the psychological roots of procrastination. حكينا شوي هيك بشكل عام أسباب ممكن تؤدي للprocrastination. So low self-confidence could be a contributing factor. إذا شخص منه واثق من نفسه، حاسس إنه الoutcome اللي حيعمله is never going to be good enough, and this person is judging themselves or comparing themselves constantly to other people, or for instance, fearing being negatively judged by other people for their work. كمان all of this can result in low self-esteem, low self-confidence, and result in procrastination. Anxiety أكيد, it goes without saying. Lack of structure sometimes will contribute. Inability to motivate ourselves. أكترية الوقت people tend to wait for motivation to be external. Meaning, oh, إذا بعمل هيدا الشيء, I don't know, I'm going to receive praise by my boss, or I'm going to get an increase in my salary. كل هول external motivators. People typically struggle sometimes to find an internal motivator. كيف هيدا الشيء حيكون لصالحي و is going to help to my personal growth without the outside world. So sometimes the inability to motivate ourselves can be a problem. Rumination اللي هي it's tied to anxiety. Rumination يعني لما نحن نفكر بشغلة over and over and over and over again. هيدا الشيء كمان بيسبب in this, you know, freeze response. كمان it could be tied to an underlying mental health condition. So let me explain that. مش كل شخص عنده مشاكل بالprocrastination عنده mental health condition. Okay, so doesn't necessarily mean if I procrastinate today, oh, I might have depression, but it could be tied to these things. Okay, so this is just something for people to be aware of, that it could be tied to depression, OCD, ADHD. Those are the most common types of mental health conditions it's tied to, and it could be tied to other types. بس هول أكتر شيء. ذكرت already إنه it could be linked to impulsivity. Any questions before I continue? Okay, hope that's clear so far. So كمان بدنا نفكر procrastination as a function. So أكيد there's a reason why we do it, you know, otherwise why would we do it? So as we said, short-term benefit is I put my stress at bay, I feel good in the moment. Another thing is it's actually protecting me. It's protecting me from failure, fearing the failure. You know, I don't have to think of it in the moment. It's protecting me in the sense that I'm not being judged by other people. Kamen, it's protecting me from self-condemnation, or me, in other words, talking to myself negatively, blaming myself, holding myself accountable. So for a moment, عم بحمي حالي ما ضروري أفكر بهالأشياء. It's great. So why don't we do it? So أكيد it relieves the pressure in the here and now. So there are two types of procrastinators. Already probably سمعتوني كذا مرة عم بستخدم كلمة you know, chronic procrastinator. But now we're going to look into two different types اللي هن passive and active. So a passive procrastinator هو لما الشخص delays the task because they have trouble making a decision and acting on it. So I can't make up my mind, ما بعرف شو بدي أعمل، خلص ما حأخذ قرار هلا. I'm going to think about it later. This is the passive procrastinator. versus active procrastinator, it's not so much the trouble of making decision, but it's more of this idea that if I delay the task هلا, I'm gonna relieve myself من الpressure. And if I work under pressure closer to the time, أكيد رح أعمل منيح. وكتير في students أكيد كانوا, till now we hear this a lot. إنه خلص I'm used to it. إنه I work well. ما بدرس هيك
منيح تحت الضغط. هاي كتير نسمع.
Exactly. كتير بنستعملها. وأنا كنت من الأشخاص كمان as a student I would use this. إنه طب ما I'm succeeding إذا بدرس overnight. I'm still, doing relatively well and I'm passing my exams. So we realize that this strategy kind of works for us.
Yes.
Exactly. So when it works, كمان بتشجعنا إنه to do more of it. ما في negative consequence. So yeah, these are the two types of procrastinators. So consequences of procrastinating, no surprise, it's going to affect our physical health and it's going to affect our mental health. So physical health, you heard me saying more than once that it's related to stress. So إذا أنا بالوقت الحالي I'm not doing a task, I feel good, yay, but then if I'm rushing to do it last minute, my stress goes up, my cortisol level goes up, my mind is racing. كل هيدا رح يسبب نوع من البانيك. كمان حيأثر على جسم الداخلي, right? So internal mechanisms are going to be affected. One of the things that we know is it can result in insomnia. Just like I said, I was one of the people, I would pull all-nighters, stay up late. So sleep disturbances, insomnia, we might have a comprised immune system. We're probably more prone to the flu, colds, having headaches, higher levels of stress, having also gastrointestinal problems, and we might have a higher risk, it does lead to higher risk of hypertension and cardiovascular disease, which again shouldn't be very surprising to people. يعني already نحن شايفين, there's substantial evidence that shows إنه chronic stress بيأثر على our, على our physical health, خصوصاً blood pressure levels and all of those sorts of things. Same mechanism, procrastination leads to stress or chronic stress, which can lead to these host of physical health problems. It can result in lower task performance. Kamena, decision fatigue, just not being able to make up our mind, constantly thinking, what should I do? Should I do this or should I do that? And again, not taking an actual, action towards it. يمكن يكون في عنا increased burden على our social relationships. These are, again, just a few things. I'm sure people here can also... Yeah, go ahead.
Yes. So أنا سؤال من حدا من الaudience and I share the same question كمان, and it crossed my mind. طب إذا بنعرف إنه عنا negative consequences for procrastination. So عم تسأل, somebody from the audience is asking, how come if we know very well that if we don't do a certain thing and our life might dramatically change, and still we don't have enough motivation to change this behavior or to fix it. يعني ليش منضل بهالcycle مع إنه نحن عارفين إنه this is very important for us, our life can change dramatically. Why don't we have the motivation to change this habit?
So one reason, again, is just the reward, the immediate gratification actually outweighs this negative consequence in the here and now. So we find, again, justifications for our actions. And like I mentioned, it's probably a combination of other things, عادة it's not one reason alone. So it keeps us stuck. It keeps us stuck in this cycle. هلا hopefully بهيدا السكشن هلا فينا نحكي شوي عن strategies to kind of combat this issue, of delaying things. For some people, the negative consequence also is just not that big. Some people feel comfortable in where they are, again, it's a strategy that works for them. So combination of things keeps us stuck in a habit. It's kind of like, take another behavior, like, I don't know, smoking, smoking cigarettes or any other forms of electronic cigarettes these days and things like that. We all know it's harmful for the body, for the mind. Many people are very well aware of that and still will struggle to stop that. One can argue هيدي addiction, physiological addiction, but كمان it's habitual. So same thing with procrastination. It becomes habitual. It becomes familiar. It works for us. We do it again and again. So several things keep people stuck. So how do we beat procrastination? I mean, Sandra, بدي أطرح هيدا السؤال لإلك because, like I said, we've all procrastinated in our lives.
I am a procrastinator.
Well, what's something that you've tried to do to manage that a little bit better? Has anything worked?
It was much more than what it is now. So I was a bad procrastinator. هلا صرت أحسن. أكتر شيء I associate يعني وقت ما يكون عبالي أعمل task I do it with something that I want to do. بعملهم سوا. Let's say I have to write something report ما عبالي أعمله. I put music لأنه I enjoy music and I do them together. So بصير عبالي أعمل report لأنه I linked it to listening to music which gives me a good feeling. This works. نجحت.
Good. So what you're saying is you've also, manipulated your environment so that it suits you. It makes it more likely for you to engage in the unpleasant task.
Yes.
And that's one of the strategies that I will be talking about a bit later. Okay, so one of the things that people have probably heard about is a method we call chunking, or chopping up tasks into smaller pieces. When something is so big, so massive, it's so abstract, we have no idea where to begin. This is where we want to start. We want to break it down into smaller pieces so that we can put a plan into action, take necessary steps to work towards it. هيك it feels more manageable. كمان للأشخاص that don't know where to start with this, ask for help. Ask someone to help you with this chunking if you don't know where to begin. You don't have to do this alone, especially if you've never done it before and you don't know where to start. Ask for help. Second thing is try the 5-minute rule. So the 5-minute rule is about task initiation. A lot of people struggle with procrastination ليبلشوا الشغلة. So the 5-minute rule stipulates إنه خصصوا 5 دقايق لتبلشوا بهالشغلة. بس حطوا 5 minutes aside to start and get on with it. هيك we're not going back to this idea of I need to be in the mood, I need to feel a certain way to start something, but I'm saying I'm going to start it either way. So in a sense, it's around being committed, being more disciplined, and helping us to just bridge the gap into something. We start it, and once we start it, it might be easier. It's like this idea of I get on the bike, I'm not sure how long I'm going to pedal on the bike for, but if I get on the bike, I've already done a huge part already. بلشت هالشغلة. So same idea. Start something for 5 minutes, see how you get on with it. Another pretty neat technique is what we call visualization or mental rehearsal. And there are kind of steps for this. هلا visualization or mental rehearsal, whichever word you want to use, نفس الشيء, is about really imagining sort of a positive outcome and thinking about doing the task from A to Z in your mind with a positive or successful outcome. هيدا الشيء بحطنا كمان in a more optimistic state of mind, if you will, rather than the anxious state of mind of, oh my gosh, where do I begin? I don't know where to start, and thinking of all of those negative scenarios. With visualization, we try to envision something positive. So شو هن الsteps? أول step هو think of a past behavior that resulted in a conflict أو صار شيء that didn't go according to plan, and really think of what happened, what you did, etc. Second step is understand that you did what you did at the time. Acknowledge it and accept it. A lot of the times نحن بنحمل هالمسؤولية and we're very critical of ourselves. كيف أنا هيك سمحت لحالي? I should have known better, etc. So الطريقة اللي بنحكي مع حالنا ممكن تكون كتير مأذية. So بالvisualization, what we really want to do is to accept what happened, acknowledge إنه عملنا اللي بنقدر عليه given the circumstances. ثالث شغلة, consider how you could have handled that situation with the wisdom and knowledge you have now. لأنه الأشياء اللي نحن بنعرفها now are not the same things that we knew back then. So let your present self think about what you would have done differently. Then immerse yourself in that situation من أول وجديد and think of how you would have handled the situation masterfully. And congratulate yourself for, thinking of a new outcome. So I hope I made myself clear. بس رح أرجع أعيدها very quickly. تخيلوا again situation that didn't turn out very well. Think about what you could have done differently. Again, acknowledge that the mistake or whatever it was happened. Think about what you could have done differently and what your present self would advise, past self. وجربوا تفكروا بالpositive outcome. Another thing that helps us is finding some personal meaning in the task. This is a big one, especially for me personally. I found that this helps me a lot. So going back to examples that I gave earlier today, if a student is assigned to work on a paper, they don't care about the topic. They don't care about the course that they're taking. They think all of this is a waste of time and it's irrelevant. And in the grand scheme of things, it's never going to matter. They're going to be very discouraged to get on with the work. بينما إذا this person is able to find something that is of personal value and adds meaning to their life by doing this task, they're more likely going to engage in it. So بدي شدد على هيدي النقطة for people to find some sort of personal meaning in the task that they're doing. We call this, in a sense, cognitive reappraising. It's how we think about a situation, what we're telling ourselves. The more I tell myself it's meaningless, it's pointless, it's a waste of time, I'm only encouraging myself to create more distance between me and the task. But if I go, you know what, it's going to help me with my writing skills. It's going to help me with my overall research skills, which I can apply in other settings. بركي هيدا الشيء بيساعد أكتر. Engaging in psychotherapy. So this is no surprise, going to counseling, seeing a therapist that adopts 2 or 3 types of strategies that we know tend to work, or approaches, اللي هن CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, motivational interviewing, or also, solution-focused therapy. Those are 3 approaches that have been found to be quite effective in helping people deal with procrastination. Other ways to beat procrastination is using the Pomodoro technique. اللي هي we put aside 25 minutes to do a task, and immediately after that, we have 5 to 10 minutes to rest. So in this way, again, we're not saying, oh my gosh, I'm going to start this thing. It's going to be endless. It's going to take 2 hours, 3 hours of my time. بس عم بعطي وقت لحالي اخد break and to step away from it. So this technique also has been found to be helpful, especially with students. I know a lot of students tried this and have gotten back to me and said, this is helpful. The environment. So مثل ما أنت ذكرتي ساندرا أنه مثلا you put music helps you. We need to really think about the environment that helps us versus the environment that doesn't help us. And we all know this, إذا نحكي مع حالنا, and we really think to ourselves, what is it that's getting in the way? We're all able to identify what gets in the way. It might be that, we're coming back and trying to work on something very important on the dining table. And the dining table is in the place where people are walking in and out of the room. It's loud, it's noisy, the TV is on, we're kind of setting ourselves up for failure in that way. So we really need to think about our environment and how we can create the environment that's more suitable for us to get on with the work we need to do. Another thing that's huge is language, how we speak to ourselves. The more I tell myself, I'm never going to amount to anything. I'm not good enough. I'm a failure. What's the point in trying? ما هيك وهيك ما حدا شايف شغلي, ما حدا is going to acknowledge it. The more I am highly critical of myself, the more I'm going to keep myself stuck in a loop. The more I say, how could I have done that mistake? And I don't accept that I'm human and I make mistakes. Again, the more I'm going to be likely to procrastinate. Versus I'm kind to myself, if I'm gentle with myself, if I speak softly, that's going to have a huge impact on how I get on with things. So practice being more gentle and understanding with yourself. We've all done mistakes. Like I said, we've all procrastinated. We don't feel good about it. We regret it. We feel ashamed. That's okay. Let's find ways to adopt a more healthy way of relating to ourselves. كمان, there are apps for everything these days. There are also apps to help people to organize themselves better. هول apps, they can help you to create lists, to check things off of this list. بيبعتوا لكم reminders. I personally have never used any of those apps, but again, I've heard of people who have tried apps and have found it to be helpful for them. One app that's quite popular is called Habit Hub. You know, you're welcome to check it out. If you haven't tried something like that and you want to give it a go, why not? That's something to look into. And
comments من
yes.
So حدا commented having a planner helped. So maybe it's aligned with the sending reminders and being planning things.
Having a planner can help. I'm gonna share how I think it can help, but the person can also, you know, add in the chat and let you know. So some ways a planner can help is by keeping us scheduled. If we have things in our schedule ahead of time, we can work towards that. So it's as simple as, oh, on, you know, Saturday, I have a comedy that I booked to watch with friends, but I also have to work on a paper. Okay, I better work earlier so that I can go to that comedy night, you know. So that's also something that helps, right? So just knowing how to manage our time better makes us feel more organized, etc. So yeah, thank you for that tip on el planner. Was there anything else?
Hey, we have a question. Do you think that if the id is stronger than the superego, then we might be more prone to procrastination? Is it kind of instinctual?
So that's a very
you can explain also the question. I know it's a bit
yeah, it's very psychological in nature. So okay, how do I explain this briefly? So the id and the ego and the superego are concepts or terms that were developed by Freud. And for people who don't know who Freud is, we're not going to go into that, but he's one of the major psychoanalytic theorists that came around in this lifetime. And one of his major contributions كان تركيزه على unconscious أو اللاوعي. يعني this was his main contribution, in addition to early childhood and some other things. But in a nutshell, let's say it was this. So id, ego, super ego بيميزهم by basically saying id هو كل شيء خاصه بالimpulses واللي هن unconscious drive تبعنا. والego is something that mediates الid والsuper ego. Super ego إذا بدك هو our moral compass imposed by life. Okay, meaning that إذا أنا اليوم بسرق رح يكون في عقاب. You know, إذا بسرق رح انحبس. I will have to pay something. في شيء consequence لهيدا الشيء. الego is my kind of decision maker أو buffer بين السوبر ego والid. إنه should I steal that candy bar from the shop because it tastes so good? Or maybe I shouldn't steal the candy bar from the shop because there's a camera, they're going to find me, right? So just as a simple example, that was the first thing that came to my mind. So فيك ترجعي تعيدي لي السؤال، شو كان السؤال؟
Do you think that if the id is stronger than the superego, then we are more prone to procrastination? عنا impulse behavior يمكن أكبر.
Yeah, I mean, that's one way to think of it. There's not a lot of studies that will talk of it in that sense. And I don't think of procrastination in that way. You know, I think we're all driven by our unconscious drives and we all have these impulses. Again, you know, I'm craving chocolate. I want it now. You know, there's a pleasure principle. أكيد نحن هول في أشياء we are drawn to. But I think, again, there are a lot of factors there that can help mediate things, you know. So one way to explain it is the id, sure, you know. I hope that makes sense, the way I answered that. Yeah. Any other questions?
Yeah.
Okay.
يهمنا نسمع الناس يمكن بعدين بالروم. We'd like to hear their experiences, what are their challenges, إذا جربوا your techniques, شو زبط شو ما زبط.
Yeah, I would love to hear some people's feedback. كمان, what works, what doesn't. يمكن في other stuff we didn't cover today that has worked for people. So بهيدا last segment قبل ما ننقل على الroom, I wanted to pose some questions that people can ask themselves. So one of the things I mentioned earlier on how to beat procrastination is to consider going to a counselor, going to therapy, talking about it. For people that don't already know, going into therapy means also being asked questions by your therapist. Sometimes the questions اللي عم تنطرح علينا بتخلينا نفكر بالأمور بطريقة مختلفة, and it helps us to make connections and links in a way we didn't before. So sometimes people can have a aha moment, like, oh, I never quite saw it that way. And that's one of the powers of therapy. It's the questions that are being asked can lead to revelations, if you will. So the questions I have here could help some people, to think about things in a different way. So I wanted to just, bring them to the table. So something to ask yourself is, what will success look like for me? I have this task that I need to do. If I do it successfully, what does it actually look like? Envision that and ask yourself that. Another thing is, what are some ways for me to motivate myself to get started? So واحدة من الأشياء اللي ذكرتها إنه كتير في أشخاص they rely on external motivators to get things done. And it's hard for them to find something internal to keep them going. This is something to ask yourself. What are some ways that I can motivate myself to get started? How do I plan to motivate myself when obstacles arise? Because كمان we want to sort of anticipate that there will be barriers, there will be things that get in the way from us doing whatever it is that we need to do. And think about or describe how you feel during and after procrastination. For all of these things, I strongly encourage people to write about them, not just to think about it. I think writing can be a very powerful tool. By writing things out, we can look at things and examine them in a way that we can't quite do if we're just keeping it all up in our mind. So I would strongly encourage people who want to try this out, يكتبون, take your time with them, really try to answer these questions. And think of a time you felt amazing about the work that you did. How did it feel and why? Again, these can be some ways to get people to start doing something. So the last thing I'm going to end with is, أكيد نحن, we are all different. And when we're trying to address the gap between our intention and action, it's important to think about a plan that works for you. So أنا ذكرت اليوم كذا strategy. They might work for some people, they might not. For you, Sandra, it was about environment. For me, a big one was personal meaning. Other people here might say, oh, this works for me, that doesn't work for me. Whatever it is, that's fine. Mafi one size fits all. Find something that suits your personality style and experiment with it. And last thing I wanted to end with was a quote that was said by Joseph Ferrari, اللي هو كتير عامل, دراسات على procrastination. So he said, procrastination is not waiting, and it is more than delaying. It is a decision to not act. When one simply continues to gather information beyond the point of adequate resources, then they are being indecisive, and waiting is counterproductive. So this is specifically for the passive procrastinators, when they're going, I can't decide, I need to do more research, I need to figure it out. So for example, someone that's in a relationship and there are many signs there that have told the person it's probably better to end the relationship, and they know that that's what they need to do, but they're delaying doing that, and they're going, but no, let me give it more time, let me gather more information, let me kaza. This is just an example, right? So again, the decision to not act is a decision by itself, and this is an act of what we call procrastination. And it's reached a point where we've already gathered evidence. What are we doing now? So just something for people to think about. We will leave it at that. I'm gonna just stop sharing the PowerPoint.
Thank you so much. It was a very informative presentation. أنا استفدت كتير. I'm a procrastinator, I can say. So it makes us think about different techniques مثل ما قلتي and what could work and to experiment نشوف what could work for us. This is what we're gonna do next. So we're يعني بدنا إياكم تنقلوا معنا على virtual room. رح فرجيكم هيك بس طريقة للي ما بيعرف. نحن خلقنا رومز قدامكم على الموبايل على الاب. ببين بالمنيو تحت انه في راوند تيبل، في ريسبشن، في صالون، في روم. كلمه روم يو بريس اون روم وراح تشوفوا روم اسمها Inside the Mind of a Procrastinator. كبسوا عليها ونحن رح نبلش بالروم. ما منسجل ابدا وفيكم تخبرونا عن خبرتكم تجربتكم ونحكي بتفاصيل اكثر ونسال دكتور نيكول يعني more questions. We can go deeper into the subject. نكفي حديثنا. Thank you so much, doctor. Let's move to the room.
See you in a bit.
See you.